A final farewell to the 39th President of the United States. Today, funeral services for President Jimmy Carter wrapped up. The day started in our nation's capital with a state funeral at the Washington National Cathedral. And then Carter made his final journey home to Georgia for another service, and this time at his church where he taught Sunday school. And you can see the small church was packed with people during the service. After the service, his motorcade made its way through his hometown of Plains, Georgia once again. Hundreds of people lined the streets for the procession, waiting to pay their respects to the late Jimmy Carter. Our Riley Phillips was there in Plains and spoke with people who made the trip to say goodbye.
It was a day of sorrow, but also a day of celebration as the town of Plains says goodbye to former President Jimmy Carter. The people here say they will miss him living right down the road, but they say they are proud of the man he was and how he represented the town. I spoke with one man who was lucky enough to call President Carter his friend.
I'm gonna miss them like crazy.
A friendship formed through faith.
Because even though that he was the person like he was in the public, that was him in the private life.
Ben Soseby met Jim and Rosalind Carter in church one day. Soon after, he was being invited over for lunch and receiving phone calls from the former First Lady.
I was sitting there one Sunday and she leaned over and asked him, "What are we doing for lunch today?" And she leaned back to me and said, "Ben, come have what's going out in the refrigerator."
Thursday was a difficult day for Soseby. He was invited to the private service at Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains, where he would have to say goodbye to a dear friend.
It hadn't hit me hard yet, but it will.
Outside of the church and throughout Plains, hundreds of people lined the streets waving flags. Shanita James traveled from the next town over to pay her respects. She was overcome with emotion as President Carter's motorcade passed by.
Tears of joy. Job well done, Mr. Carter. He did a great thing, and his heart and everything that he did, it will forever live on.
Just before 7 Thursday evening, President Carter made his final trip through his hometown of Plains, with his family walking behind him as those who knew him and those who didn't say goodbye to the former president. Soseby knows his legacy and spirit of service will live on for years to come.
He taught me how to be an example like he wanted to be.
And although the schedule of events was delayed here in Plains, the crowd stuck around despite it getting dark and temperatures dropping, all so they could say goodbye and pay their respects to Jimmy Carter. In Plains, Riley Phillips, First Coast News, on your side.
Riley, thank you for that. Carter was buried next to his wife near the house, the one they built before his first Senate campaign in 1962. That was for the state Senate. It's also where they lived out the rest of their lives, with the exception of 4 years in the Georgia governor's mansion and 4 years in the White House. And we're told their grave sites will be open to the public within the next 6 months. Our coverage of President Jimmy Carter's funeral services continues on First Coast News Plus. We have a 30-minute special that looks at his life, and you can watch it free on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV.